Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today it's time to go through the front gardens as we count down the final days of September 2023. Of course, the absolute queen of the front landscape are these beautiful Thailand giant colocasias. And not only is their foliage super impressive, but their blooms are truly magnificent. So let me turn this camera around and give you a closer view. Well, these leaves are so incredible, and everyone who stops by has to comment and ask about these. And just to give you a real understanding of how big they are, here's my hand, barely even covering a little. So remember, these are best actually grown from seed. And I know that I say that and people look at me like I'm from Mars, but honestly, it's true. In this climate, at least, even if they are winter hardy from temperatures, it's likely that we're too wet. And if they do overwinter, they lack vigor. So these were actually grown from seed, started, I think, in February in a warm greenhouse. And they are abundant seeders. So you see, here is a flower. This is a pristine, beautiful flower, and this will get pollinated. And then let me show you what their seed heads look like. So this plant here has a whole bunch of seed heads forming. They're not mature yet, but every single one of these was a flower that did get pollinated. So the seeds are inside of these. And I will collect these before we have frost and bring them in. And basically my plan is to give them back to my friends at NC State who have access to warm greenhouses so they can get the seeds started again. And my hope is that I can sort of have them contract grow a whole bunch so that I can have these available for sale at the Spring Open Garden, which is scheduled for Saturday, May 11th, 2024. But it's not just the colocasia that look amazing out here. The combination with zinnias, the Treasure Island sweet potatoes, and the cosmos, I think really make this bed sing. When there's a breeze, everything kind of just blows gently. There have been tons of pollinators, though I don't see as many butterflies today as I did yesterday. It's just a joy that this bed has really grown out to meet and exceed all of my expectations. You can also see that the sweet potatoes are starting to flower, and I really like their blooms, and so do a lot of pollinators. And I'm gonna leave this as is until I get back from my October travels. So probably will dive into harvesting this bed realistically sometime in the middle of November. I'd like to do it before Thanksgiving, just because I'd like to harvest the tubers to be able to eat from the sweet potatoes. But often I just kind of let this stuff get nipped by frost, and that makes my job cleaning up significantly easier. So we will see. I am gone on several trips in October, but one long one with the International Plant Propagators Society, where I'm gone from October 16th until November 1st. So the garden isn't gonna get any care during that time. And I'm just mentally preparing myself that when I come home, that is when I will start my major seasonal change outs. But for right now, I'm just enjoying the view. It's hard to imagine that this was a blank slate back in the middle of June. It's really amazing how plants can grow. Well, I'm very pleased to show you that the Lespedeza leucoiensis little volcano is starting to flower. This has been really dwarfed, and I think primarily because this bed got so dry. It's also, under a live oak and gets a lot of shade. I don't really mind it being smaller because when I first planted these, they were like 12 foot. And a little bigger than I could manage. And you could see I only planted like maybe 3, but they've just kind of merged throughout the bed, and I love how they weave themselves in. And you can see this stand in particular looks really nice. You know, these beautiful bright fuchsia flowers. You could see bees really enjoy gathering nectar from them. And it really is just a beautiful fall blooming kind of deciduous shrub. Some years it doesn't die to the ground, but I have found the easiest maintenance practice is to cut it back flush to the ground and just let it regrow. And that may be in part why it's a bit shorter. I prefer this height versus it being double the size. It was just a lot. It was a lot to manage when it was so much taller. Well, I'm very pleased to see good germination of that mixed greens, spicy mixed greens mix that I had available at the Fall Open Garden. I sowed it a bit densely, and you can see this is the kale and this is lettuce here, and that looks like mustard. That looks like a carrot. So it's gonna be fun to watch this grow out. It's dry. It's so dry. We don't really have any rain in the forecast. But I did sow this really early. I'd say you can sow this stuff now. I still prefer November sowing, just because, I guess because we tend to be a bit wetter at that season, although maybe that isn't totally accurate. But I do feel like as I'm looking at this, like I probably need to run some sprinklers. And it's not even warm out. But you know, it's that warm and it's super dry, but somehow there are like 20 billion mosquitoes. And so many fire ants. Oh my gosh, you guys. Walking around, you have to really pay attention to every step you make. There are fire ants absolutely everywhere. But I'm really pleased in overall with how things have grown out this year. You know, a lot of the gardens are changing relatively rapidly because of all the trees that I planted, and you know, the oaks in particular are starting to really create much shadier environments than what existed here when I originally did these plantings. And so it's fun to see how things like chrysanthemums are adapting. And of course we've got Salvia leucantha that's starting to bloom. I lost most of my Salvia leucantha last year during the holiday freeze, so it's really nice to have a couple of plants left. I kind of decided that I wasn't gonna buy a bunch more of it since it's not always reliable. Although when it's in bloom, I want like 3 million of them. This is actually a Mexican. This is Calicarpa acuminata. You can see it's just starting to get its color on the berries. And that is one that does really well. It's a dieback shrub. Pretty much dies to the ground every year from the cold. I cut it down and then it grows back up from the roots. And here we've got Calicarpa americana, Welch's pink. And this is hands down one of my all-time favorite beauty berries. It's one of the very first to color up, and it's certainly an incredible cultivated selection of a native plant. And you know, birds eat the seeds. You can see they've been busy nibbling. Just because it's a cultivar doesn't mean that it doesn't offer some substantial ecological value. So don't believe all that when you hear people ranting and raving over only seed grown, no cultivated varieties. I don't believe that's scientifically accurate at all. And again, grow what brings you joy. And I happen to get a lot of joy from this soft pink beauty berry. Well, speaking of joy, the front border is definitely giving me joy, although minus those stupid cannas. I have a friend who's gonna take those and I'm very happy to give them to someone who wants them. so that they can have a loving home and not be here. I was telling a garden club earlier this week, like, they were like, ooh, you put them in the ground. And remember, I didn't put them in the ground. They're in sunken pots. So it's going to be really easy to rip out and give away without disturbing the roots. And they won't have escaped the pot, and I won't have any long-term trouble. The sun credibles have definitely gone downhill, which is fairly normal. I'm not going to do anything to this bed because once I start, I won't be able to stop. But yeah, you know, they definitely looked better a few weeks ago. But other than the cannas and the sun credible, everything else looks magnificent, especially my favorite zinnia. This is Queenie Lime Orange, and I know I talk about it every week, but it deserves to be talked about. It's beautiful. And like the other zinnias, it's starting to get some powdery mildew. But again, that's just the climate at this time of year. Now, one thing that I really have to do, and I'm going to do it as soon as I finish, I have to put out more BT. You can see I have got these cabbage worms. They are all over the plant. They look just like the plant because they're this, you know, green. They just, you know, hide in plain sight. And they are destroying my early season broccoli plants. So, got to keep up on the BT. It's a reminder to all of you, if you're growing cool season crops, BT is your best friend at this time of year because the caterpillar pressure is really high. Now, I've been harvesting quite a few eggplants, which is great. I am really missing having squash and zucchini in the garden, but that's okay. I'll buy it from the grocery store. At least I had a few months where I didn't have to buy it. You can see nice eggplants still coming, and I suspect these will continue to produce heavily until we have frost. And again, those magnificent peppers I showed you in a video yesterday. Here are more of the same. They are the biggest jalapeno peppers that I've ever grown. I am so impressed. And well, I probably need to start doing a big harvest, and I'm home all weekend, so maybe I will go ahead and make some cowboy candy using these peppers, which is basically just candied jalapenos, cooking the jalapeno rings after you de-seed them in vinegar and an outrageous amount of sugar. And it totally makes them not hot, and they're really delicious on sandwiches. And well, I eat them all the time, basically with everything. Of course, I want to check out the roselle. It's doing great. I am so happy with this. You can see I've had quite a few already flower, and this is, I think, what you harvest for tea. I have to do some research so that I can actually put this into motion, but I'm feeling fairly certain that right here is what you end up harvesting. It's a beautiful plant, really beautiful plant. I'd love to collect some of my own seed, but remember, I got this from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, and they really have such high quality seeds and really cool, interesting varieties. So not only this hibiscus, but that hibiscus over there, the burgundy leaf one, came from them. And that literally just scattering the seed packs into the bed back in the middle of June. So it didn't take much effort to grow these beautiful hibiscus. And of course, the castor beans, I think, are a really important part of this bed. So their architecture and their color. So you can see the seeds are starting to form. And I feel like this year, right now at least, I've got these kind of pretty well under control. Now, being gone for most of October might be a different story when I get back in November. But for right now, I'm just really enjoying the fact that these castor beans self-sowed in these spaces, and I think that they really round out the bed so nicely. Well, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this week's weekly garden tours. celebrating the last few days of September. I look forward to checking in again next week to show you how the garden continues to evolve. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening.